Did you know that the Prophet ﷺ said that when Umar radiallahu anhu walked on the street, that the shaitan would purposefully walk on the other side of the street so he could avoid him? Now just imagine that. With every other person in the world and with you and me, the shaitan will try and be around us, like a mosquito in our ear, constantly trying to bring us towards sin. But with Umar radiallahu anhu and a lot of these very pious people, it was the complete opposite. Now why was this? It was because whenever shaitan would try and whisper in Umar radiallahu anhu's ear for him to do sins or for him to stop doing something good, Umar would take it as a sign to do even more. So for example, let's say shaitan tries to whisper to Umar, stop reading Quran or, commit this sin. Umar would hear this and think, okay, well, because shaitan is telling me this, I'm going to do even more. I'm going to read even more Quran and I'm going to stop this sin. So Umar radiallahu anhu had so much control of his nafs and so much control of his desire that shaitan basically gave up on trying to control him or convince him to do anything bad. Shaitan's best strategy against him was basically just to leave him alone, because he knew that every time he would try to convince him to do a sin, that Umar would only get better. And so Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah had this quote where he said that success is cutting the roots of desires. And so what does this really mean? Well, if we think about it, all evil and all of these, bad things that are going to happen in your life, and eventually, Jahannam, is a result of certain desires, and also not being able to control those desires. And so therefore the opposite of that, success, is the ability to control your desires and cut off these desires, and also control your nafs. And so Umar radiallahu anhu had this special ability to literally do the opposite of his desires. So whenever shaitan tried to convince him to do a certain sin or indulge in a certain desire, he had the ability to do the exact opposite. And this is what Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah meant by his quote, cut off the roots of the desire. That means do the exact opposite of the desire. Do the exact opposite of what your nafs is telling you to do, and that's how you control it. And you have to understand that the nafs has a snowballing effect, and this is what's super dangerous about it. When you don't control your nafs and you let your nafs, roam freely, it's not that it's just going to commit sins or, be disobedient to Allah. It's that it's going to start being disobedient a little bit, and then very, very quickly it's going to become more and more disobedient. For example, let's say you tell yourself, I'm just going to spend an hour or maybe even just 30 minutes scrolling on my phone or scrolling on YouTube. You and I both know that you're lying to yourself when you say it's only going to be 30 minutes or it's only going to be an hour. Before long, you're going to look back and realize you just spent the last 10 hours scrolling and wasting your life away. That's what I mean when I say the nafs has this snowballing effect. And honestly, all sins have this snowballing effect, which is why it's especially important to control your nafs. Because the thing is, good deeds also have this snowballing effect. You've probably experienced this as well. When you decide, okay, I'm going to sit down and read some Quran, and let's say, you do that in the beginning of the day, later on in the day, you're more likely to do good deeds. And you're more likely to also maybe pray an extra 2 rakats, or maybe wake up for tahajjud, or do extra things just because of that one thing you did before. And so controlling your nafs is something you have to do 24/7, because if you let it slip, it's going to snowball into something really, really bad. Now, honestly, I feel like a lot of the stuff I said does seem like pretty general advice. I mean, it's stuff maybe you've heard before. But there's one extra thing I want to talk about that's super important, and honestly, I feel like it's the key to controlling your desire. So everybody has heard this verse before. Allah says in the Quran, tell the believing men to lower their gaze. And the reason why lowering your gaze is so important for this specific fitna is because your gaze or your eyesight is the source of all of those desires. I mean, just imagine if you never saw the opposite gender, of course you would not suffer from that fitna and you would not suffer from the same desires. But a very interesting point I want you to realize as well is lowering your gaze does not only apply to the fitna of the opposite gender. In fact, lowering your gaze could literally apply to everything, and this is how you actually shape your desires. I want you to think about it this way. Let's say you spent hours every day looking at like luxury stuff. So like luxury cars, luxury houses, all of these things to do with luxury and money and stuff like that. Imagine what's going to happen to your desires. You're going to start desiring those luxury things. And you're also going to subconsciously start having thoughts where, okay, now I really need to make money, or I want to make money, or I want these luxury things. And eventually that's going to manifest in your actions. Your actions will literally change just based on the things you saw. So I want you to understand that the things you saw with your eyes literally changed your desire. Even if it's not something that's necessarily haram, right? It's not haram to want luxury things or a luxury car, but it's still very dangerous to have that desire. Because when you have that desire for a lot of those luxury things and vehicles or whatever else, that might overpower, your are obedience to Allah. A lot of people are obedient to money instead of obedient to Allah. Now, on the other hand, something a lot of people do, especially during Ramadan when they're fasting, is looking at videos of food. You probably know a person like this, or you might be like this yourself, where you just love looking at videos or shorts or whatever of like, these really delicious meals during Ramadan when you're fasting. And what do you think that's going to do to you? Of course, it's going to make you want food, it's going to make you more hungry, and it's going to increase you in that desire. Your eyes are the gateway to that desire. That's why it's important to lower your gaze, not only in terms of women or the opposite gender, but also for anything that can lead to an evil desire. Food is not really an evil desire necessarily. I mean, a lot of people take it to the extreme.
الشيخ اليوم بالغلط وقعت في تمي شاورما مع زيادة طحينية.
نعم.
But it's not necessarily evil. But now imagine someone who's constantly looking at content about video games, or constantly looking at content about music or other things like this. These things can lead to a lot of sins and a lot of wasted time. So to change your desires, lower your gaze from these things. Change what you're literally seeing with your eyes. This is why social media and algorithms are so dangerous, because they are literally controlling what you are seeing. Therefore, they are controlling your desires. And I mean, it's obvious. After you're done scrolling for 6 hours straight, you're going to start desiring different things, and you're going to fall into a lot more sin. So once you understand this, you'll understand how to change the source of your desire. Now imagine that instead of seeing those haram things, or seeing that type of content, imagine the only thing you saw was lectures about Islam, or lectures about increasing your iman, or anything Islamic. Or maybe you don't want to even think of something Islamic, but maybe it's, doing positive work or charity or stuff like that. Now imagine what you're going to desire. You're not going to desire, wasting your time on video games or music or anything haram, but you're literally going to have the desire to, increase your iman, to participate in beneficial work or anything along those lines. And all you did was change what you saw. That's why it's so important to change the source of your desire. And that's why changing the content that you see is, one of the biggest things that you can do to change your desires. There are so many ways you can apply this to your life, changing the content that you see, changing the people you're subscribed to or the videos you watch, or even changing the people that you hang around. But I just want you to keep this in the back of your head as a principle for how you want to live your life. Understand that seeing something has an effect on you, and it has an effect on your desires. If you really feel like you have a strong desire to do this thing that's haram, or maybe you're a person who's very involved in like materialism, right? You have a very strong desire for luxury things and stuff, then you understand that the way you stop that is by cutting off the source of that desire and cutting off, seeing those things. And so a lot of the Salaf also embodied this principle of not worrying about things that don't concern you. Some of the things mentioned about them was that a person or one of the Salaf would be in their house and the roof would literally be collapsing, would be breaking, but that person would not even care. In fact, he would not even recognize it. And the reason why is because he would literally just be laser focused on the things that matter to him in life. He would be laser focused on gaining knowledge and doing obedient acts and other things like that, and he would not care about what maybe other people thought of him or what other people said, or anything that honestly doesn't matter to his life. So worrying about all of these things, seeing these other things, concerning yourself with anything else that doesn't matter, it's going to have an effect on your desires. And something that has an effect on your desires is eventually going to have an effect on your actions, because your actions most of the time just manifest through your desires. The last thing I want to mention is about thoughts. A lot of people also make this mistake with the way they're thinking. If you think about something a lot, it's going to have a very similar effect to if you're looking at something a lot. I mean, just imagine all day you're thinking about food and how you're hungry and stuff like that. You're going to have a stronger desire for it. Or imagine all day you're thinking about, money and materialism and stuff like that. That desire is going to fester in your heart. Then imagine if you're thinking all day about your goals, about gaining knowledge, about, your goal to memorize Quran. Then your desire for those things will manifest in your heart, and it'll be a lot easier to do them because it's going to be your desire to do them. Now, at the end of the day, you're always going to have to control your desires to an extent and control your nafs to an extent, but controlling the source of your desires and changing the desires themselves is one of the strongest things you could do to improve yourself and make it a lot easier to do the right actions. And of course, this would not be one of my videos without me telling you to make sincere dua. And you probably already know that, but it's one of the most important things to controlling your nafs and desires. Inshallah, you got something beneficial from this video. Understand that lowering your gaze is not just with, the opposite gender or that certain fitna. It's with literally everything. Check out this video. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.